This is The Great Outdoors with Jason White, exploring the great outdoors in Pennsylvania and beyond. Brought to you by the Mariana Outdoorsmen Association and by Wild Acres Farm, Fishery, and Regulated Hunting Grounds. Now, The Great Outdoors with Jason White.
Hello, friends. This is Jason White. Welcome to The Great Outdoors. It is a lovely June day here in Pennsylvania, and certainly I'm happy to be here with you. I want to give a special thanks to our sponsors, the Mariana Outdoorsmen Association. You can join the rest of the summer for a 30% discount. Join the MOA today at marianaoutdoors.com. Again, marianaoutdoors.com. Special thanks to Wild Acres Farm, Fishery, and Regulated Hunting Grounds, managed and operated by 10 Mile Creek Outfitters. If you're looking to have a corporate event, wedding, party, if you want to come flower picking this summer, if you're interested in the fall to do an upland bird hunt, fishing trip, free-ranging whitetail deer hunt, free-ranging spring turkey hunt next year, we can accommodate on all the above. 10 Mile Creek Outfitters operates numerous other farms, so we kind of hub out of the lodge. But if you're looking to just do any of those things, we'd love to have you. Again, 10mileco.org. Give us a call at 724-579-0924. And also, please visit Washington County, Pennsylvania. I want to go over a few upcoming events for the Mariana Outdoorsmen Association. This upcoming Saturday at 9 a.m., the MOA and American Oil and Gas Alliance will have a collaborative golf outing at Chippewa Golf Course in Bentleyville, Pennsylvania. That'll be at 9 a.m., so if you're anybody out there, I think there might be one or two teams tops before it's full, if it is not already full. But if you're interested, you can call me, 724-579-0924, and I can see about getting you on our list. You can also go on our Facebook, Mariana Outdoorsman Association at Facebook, for information. And then looking to the fall, September, we got some pretty cool stuff that's going to be happening. Upland bird stalkings and upland bird hunting will fire back up Saturday, September 6th. We'll be stalking quail, and also you can dove hunt as a member of the association. The same day, we're going to have a tour and open house. That'll be at 10 a.m. And last but not least, kind of looking ahead, we have a gun bash, cash bash, Saturday, September the 20th, and that'll be at 19 North Event Venue in Washington, Pennsylvania. Certainly happy to have everybody for that as well. All these different events are listed on our, again, marianaoutdoors.com. You can go to Mariana Outdoorsman Association at Facebook. And as always, all of these episodes are recorded and available on YouTube at the MOA Outdoor channel. You can go to Anchor and Spotify also if you want to listen to it from a podcast streaming service. And again, marianaoutdoors.com. I know I've been talking a lot about crop damages of late between the partnerships with the Pennsylvania Game Commission, and that's been really, really beneficial and extremely appreciative of everything going on. But, you know, we highlight and hone in a lot on deer when we talk about crop damage. And I've planted seeds in past episodes, and I know even at meetings I go to, I try to highlight the fact that there's a lot of other animals that cause an array of crop damage. And what I wanted to do today was I really wanted to go over some of these other species that are, if you're a farmer, anybody in agriculture, if you're interested in getting involved in agriculture in any capacity, and not only agriculture, but if you're a sportsman and you're somebody that's like planting food plots, or if you're interested about food plots, interested about habitat management, wildlife management, how to like better manage your property. There's certain things today that I think are very important that you should know and understand, because too often we focus on deer when it comes to crop yield, when we talk about like, you know, harvest and how we get crop damage, and we kind of just fixate on deer. At other times, you know, I've heard about bears with honey, and we hear about like even elk, certain parts of the state, depending on where you're at. But we don't hear a lot about the smaller animals. And the thing that I think is very, very important, I want to highlight on groundhogs, number one. I also want to highlight on raccoons, and I'll even mention about possums. Now, why do I mention any of these animals? Well, I'll start off with a groundhog. Various reasons and instances why I bring this up. Just some statistics here, but groundhogs are roughly 8 pounds. Typically, they eat 1 pound of food a day, sometimes up to a third of their weight. Food sources can include clover, alfalfa, dandelions, grasses, various garden vegetables, peas, beans, lettuce, broccoli, etc. I've seen groundhogs in fruit trees. I've seen them eat tons of different types and varieties of fruit. So if you have an orchard, this would also be of a concern. In addition to, so that's a groundhog. In addition to, I want to mention about a groundhog with safety concerns. I'm sure some of you have been out in a field and seen some of the giant holes that can pop up in the ground. That is a huge problem. Not only can you walk and break an ankle, but also there have been horror stories where farmers have rolled tractors from hitting groundhog holes and flipping a tractor, and bad accidents can happen. So, from a groundhog perspective, you're talking about losing a lot of crop. You're talking about tremendous safety concerns. So those are two that kind of fall underneath of what I would say a groundhog is a major issue, and I'm gonna circle back to that. Raccoons. I don't know if anybody's ever gone out into a cornfield in the summer, but they are another one that is very, very devastating. So a raccoon eats about roughly 1 pound a day, roughly consuming approximately 5% of their body weight. They're scavengers, but if you're anybody that is around fruits, vegetables, so like especially if you're somebody that has cornfields, these are things. Now they're not going to be so much on the grasses and that kind of stuff. That's not what they're going to do. They're going to be more for bugs, insects, meats. They'll eat dead animals. They'll kill. Like I've seen stories of where they've got into chicken coops and killed chickens. So they're an opportunistic animal. So again, if you're somebody that has what I would say fruit orchards, these are a big concern. Also, if you have any type of cornfields, big concern. A telltale sign when it comes to raccoons is typically you'll see about if you have a full standing corn stalk, you'll see about halfway up, the corn stalk will be kind of snapped off. That's usually from the raccoon climbing, and just from the sheer body weight, kind of snaps the stalk, and next thing you know, they're getting the corn from down at the bottom. And then you get into even possums. Now, a possum is kind of another how would I say it? It's an odd animal, but when you look at that again from their food perspective, they eat a lot of fruits. They also eat insects. They'll eat eggs. They can get into again, a chicken coop can be pretty how would I say it? Pretty stubborn when it comes to farm type of stuff. But if you take these three animals alone, you're talking roughly they're eating around, all of them are eating in the up and down, not exact, but if you take a raccoon, if you take a possum, and if you take a groundhog, and they're eating roughly a pound a day, just up or down. That's not an exact number, just based upon different statistics and data that I pulled up. Why is that important? So at your property, at your farm, whatever you're growing, when we talk about wildlife management, this kind of goes back to, in past discussions, I've talked about the importance of trapping. Again, we've put a lot of huge, when we talk about crop damage, there's been this direct correlation and connection with deer, and there's been like this black hole where everything else has been ignored. And I myself have been guilty of kind of at times fixating too much on deer. And I'll give you a great example. It's been obviously a nice wet year this year. A lot of the fields are looking really, really fantastic, really good. Well, I had a few spots this year that were just not coming up very well, and I didn't really press on the matter too much. I kind of thought, well, maybe that spot's just kind of taking a little longer. Well, here, after just doing some inspection and checking, come to find that I had not only a groundhog issue, but I probably had I would call almost an infestation. Um, Long story short, in 2 days, I ended up harvesting 14 groundhogs, and there's still certainly more to go. Probably have not done the best of job in years past getting the numbers that we need to, but do the math, took 14 out of the equation. So if you take 14 that we're eating roughly, so that's 14 pounds just from groundhogs that we're consuming out of the fields per day. That is an astronomical amount of vegetation being consumed by an animal that really serves no game benefit, and also is very, very destructive to your fields and creates safety issues. Statistically, wrap that out 15 times. You're talking, let's just say, for the sake of conversation, let's just say May, June, July, August, and I'll even go into September. So with that being said, just run some quick numbers here. 5 months times 30 days is 150 days. And that's a pound a day times 15. So you're talking 15 groundhogs over 5 months consume 2,250 pounds of forage. That's an astronomical number. I really, I know I've talked about it, but when I started when I started seeing some of my issues here recently, and I started doing the math, and I started looking at it, it is imperative. I want to say this to each and every one of you. And I had a conversation recently with somebody that was telling me a story about somebody dying, rolling a tractor from hitting a groundhog hole. It's very, very important that you manage small game as much as you're managing large game. I cannot stress this enough, because here's the thing. Yeah, you could have all these different, let's say at your farm you have, I'm just going to say for a hypothetical number, let's just say you have 30 deer that are coming onto your property. Well, the thing about it is, yeah, 30 deer consume a lot of vegetation. There's no doubt about it. But then how many groundhogs, again, these other species, they're also eating and consuming in that network of food? Raccoons, possums, and the list will go on. There's more too. But just to prove the point, if we ignore the little things, you have to manage the entire system. If you do not manage the entire system with all the species, and you just focus on the one, then basically you allow these other ones to become a giant problem. And again, with my example, harvested 14 in 2 days. A friend of mine, I think, got another 6. So, and we're still seeing some. So I had certainly not done what I needed to do over the past probably 3 or 4 years to properly manage that. We've harvested some, don't get me wrong, but they've reproduced beyond what we were managing. Same thing goes for raccoons. Same thing goes for possums. It's very, very important and critical that you trap your property. It's not about, look, none of this when it comes to talking about hunting and even fishing, it's not about killing anything. It's about management. It's about wildlife management. It's about understanding the causes and effects of any species within the ecosystem. You want to have a food plot? Well, guess what? If you have too many deer, if you have too many of these other smaller species, groundhogs, etc., you're never going to have a food plot. So it's never going to end up being productive come hunting season when you actually want to utilize it, because it's going to be decimated in the summertime. These are little small things that you really have to consider and to look at, because if you do not, they ultimately will end up biting you in the rear on the back end, because this stuff, like I'm saying about the amount of groundhogs I was seeing, same thing goes for trapping. We did a lot of trapping last year. We got a fair number of raccoons, and not only raccoons, but very, very large raccoons. So if you're somebody that's trying to put out, again, let's just hypothetically say, whether we talked about food plots, I mentioned all these different species, I mentioned about orchards. So if you're somebody that's interested in any type of orchards whatsoever, if you're trying to actually harvest an orchard, you're probably going to want some type of fence around it. You're almost going to want some type of chicken wire style at the bottom, because if you just do the square style and keep the deer out, it's not going to keep out these small animals. So like, these are some like little things to think about. You gotta keep out. If you're going to keep out everything, you have to keep out legitimately everything. You can't just, again, hone in on the deer, and then that's going to end up, backfiring on you. So when you're trying to like manage these orchards, food plots, etc., well, what are you trying to actually keep out? Same thing goes, like I've heard folks saying about electric fence. Temporary electric fence. There's been discussions about different types of electric fence to keep deer out. Certainly, I think that's a wonderful idea in the summertime. Again, what are you doing, though, to keep the smaller stuff out? You got to remember, like, if you put electric fence, a strand at 3 foot, and let's just say you run another one at 6 foot, well, that's all well and good, but what about that coon, groundhog, possum, and whatever else comes in there? Rabbits. That's another one that is extremely destructive when it comes to different types of plants, especially gardens. Anybody that's got any type of lettuces, anything like that, a rabbit will destroy your garden in a heartbeat. So you got to be extremely cautious and conscientious of what your end goals are, and what you're trying to keep out. If you have these spaces, I know when we talk about fence in regards to keeping some of these animals out, I know that is how do I want to describe it? It's a contentious issue, I guess. When you talk to some folks in the gaming community, sporting community, it's not really contentious for me. I mean, I just, the realities of it are, collectively, we're not harvesting and managing wildlife in numbers that's conducive for agricultural growth, whether that's and that includes also, we're overeating even the forests, and we're overeating food plots, etc., because we're not taking enough of these animals out of the system. And we've gotten away from trapping, which that's an entire conversation about how the trapping industry declining, and how different activist groups have influenced us to not trap. And that's a humongous problem, because by not managing these smaller species, and by us, I guess, allowing this destruction to take place and ignoring these opportunities to better manage the system, it causes extreme amounts of crop damage. Like I said, that could be hay fields, that could be cornfields, soybean fields, that could be orchards. Doesn't really matter. So it's wasted product just going to complete and utter waste. So like that's number one, and that's just a basic thing for everybody to acknowledge. When you have crop damage, what does that cause? Well, number one, you're going to have less of a product. Well, less equals actually more. So less of something causes the prices to go up. So there's a direct correlation to inflation. So when and it also causes the farmer to lose money. And again, just, you don't have the demand, or you have the demand, but you don't have the supply. So it causes prices to jack up on the storefront, but the farmer themselves is not getting, what they need to even make ends meet. So when we talk about planting a food plot, talking about planting a garden, talking about fields, there's different techniques and strategies even when it comes to managing these different species. So How do you know you have a problem? Let's start there. I mean, I think that's something to acknowledge, right? Well, I'll start with a groundhog. That's kind of simple, right? Uh, if you have a field or a hayfield or trails or any type of space, I mean, basically you should see them. They're a species that's out in broad daylight. Typically more active in the early morning hours, evening hours. They're not nocturnal typically. Uh, Usually not out in broad daylight, but they're more of a, the morning hours, evening hours. Morning hours, I feel like they're extremely active because they're always trying to get that wet, dewy grass. A lot of animals are like this. And same thing in the evening. They're when it's cooler, basically. Uh, Groundhogs hibernate in the winter, so you're not going to see them. So that is an animal that you basically have to manage. I would say May to September, I guess, is the time frame that I would recommend. Best way to manage them is using in my opinion, a rifle, hunting them from roughly 200 to 300 yards, having a firearm sighted in and that you've practiced and that you feel comfortable you can hit a small enough target at that size, at that distance. Again, that's a practice thing, knowing where your firearm is at. You don't want to just, if you have a groundhog issue, you don't want to just go out there not being able to shoot and be successful. You want to be successful. So make sure, I would say anything from 100 to 300, you need to be comfortable. And certainly, depending on your practice, your capabilities, your firearm, you can shoot farther. But 100 to 300 is a good window that I would recommend for people. But right now, this time of the year, great time. Whenever you cut hay fields, if you got pasture fields, anywhere that the grasses are lower, all, in my opinion, really good opportunities to, those are spots that you want to look for, and you have to harvest some. You got to take them out of the system. If you allow them to just continue to populate and populate, raccoons typically they're having multiple babies whenever they're reproducing. So, if you don't manage it accurately and quantitatively, it will expedite out of control. And if you're somebody with the groundhog piece of the puzzle and you do mow hayfields, it's a humongous problem. It's a problem because you're losing big swatches to where you can't even run the mower over you. You'll have to be driving and lift the mower deck up, go over it, drop it back down. Two, usually within, I would say, a 50-yard radius of that hole, wherever those groundhogs would end up at, you're not going to have the output because obviously they're consuming so much material within that circle. Shifting gears, looking at raccoons. Raccoons are different. They could be denned up. I mean, a groundhog's going to be in the ground typically. That's where they're going to be at. A raccoon, sometimes you just have no idea. They could be in a tree. They can be in a log. Some of them do den up in the ground in holes, hillsides. It's just one of those things that they're an opportunistic animal. Same thing for an opossum. Some of them you just don't know where they're going to be at. Raccoons, though, are mischievous little things. Where a groundhog, they present their safety issues and concerns out in the field more typically. I've even seen them to where back to the groundhog, I've seen them where they've dug under people's foundations, down into people's basements. They can be extremely destructive. So there's other implications to not managing them. I mean, you could have them dig down around your foundation of your house, get into your landscaping. I actually had that happen this past year. We had one next to our barn that got down in. It's just not good. It's just not good at all because they literally have their hole goes down and it spirals down and it can be a little elaborate system. So it's not something that you want on your property if you can avoid it, especially again if you're baling hay, if you're having food plots, if you have cattle. You definitely don't want your cattle in places where they could potentially step in one of these holes. You could have 1,000-pound cow break a leg very easily. So just something to think about. Even for me, I have the upland bird hunting. Groundhog holes are definitely not good for a dog or a person in general. So, like I said, we've been putting the time in this year to really manage that better, and I'm really, really happy, I would say, about the results and kind of where we are with all of that. It's definitely headed in the right direction, and I'm, going to keep keeping the foot on the gas. Now, when it comes to raccoons, back to that. Raccoons are utterly destructive. They can destroy a cornfield just like a deer. If you get 6 or 8 raccoons, which can hang around together in those kind of capacities, especially in the summertime months when you have, a mother and father with their young ones, they get into a cornfield and start snapping the corn stalks off. Trust me, they can be destructive very, very quickly. So, trapping is a paramount piece, especially if you're somebody that is having cornfields, soybean fields. Those areas, if you plan on, like, for example, next year, if you have a field lined out that, hey, I'm going to plant corn next year, you definitely want to have a trap line running around that and try to trap as much as you can in that perimeter. Because guess what? This winter, in the next spring, those raccoons are going to they're going to repopulate. The population is going to expand, and guess what? You're going to plant corn, and boom, they're going to come in and be eating. Same thing as the groundhogs. Groundhogs will get in there too, as will, like I said, the raccoons. And same thing goes for the possums. Now, the raccoons, the other thing that to me, they're probably on my list of 3 that we're talking about today. The groundhogs are probably the biggest safety concern as far as like breaking an ankle, rolling a machine, just their sheer physical destruction when it comes to property damage. When it comes to crop damage, the groundhog also out in the field, especially your grass fields and just what they're doing is extremely bad. And then the raccoon is just, being as opportunistic as they are, they'll get into and destroy anything. So, getting into trash, making a mess. If you see trash cans that have, if you put your trash out at night and you have raccoons around your property, certainly they are very, very, very opportunistic, and they will get into it if there's stuff in there that they smell or whatnot. Just definitely a. I'm not the biggest fan of having raccoons on a property when you're trying to manage it, and even when you talk about chickens, I have pheasants and upland birds. So I have everything fenced in for that inside of like chicken wire. Raccoons will absolutely, if they can get into a chicken coop, they will destroy. They'll kill. Kind of no different than if you've heard horror stories about a mink. I actually just had a friend of mine, not very far from me, had a mink get in and killed approximately 50 chickens. 50 chickens in broad daylight. So again, you got to trap. Trapping is such a paramount and key piece of managing and preventing crop damage. Certainly I don't think you're ever going to stop all crop damage. I don't think that's a possibility. Not trying to live with, not trying to have balance in the ecosystem. It is what it is. But we can do the best that we can. And that comes with management. That comes with harvesting, not just deer, but we have to make sure that we're harvesting these other species as well strategically throughout the year. And right now it's summertime. Groundhogs are a great animal to target. It's also a fun shooting sport. You don't have to worry about, being dressed in 6 layers of clothes. It's kind of nice that you can go out and enjoy, I'd say, the summer evenings or even early in the summer morning and do a little wildlife management and have I would say, a nice experience. Raccoons, possums, hey, follow your normal trapping season. If you don't know how to trap and you want to learn, there's a ton of YouTube videos out there, lots of great information on the internet. Certainly, if you know anybody that traps, try to shadow somebody, learn as best that you can, and there's nothing wrong with trial and error. A lot of times in life, you have to just kind of figure it out, and trapping is it's an absolute necessity in regards to wildlife management, and I cannot stress that enough. I hope that's the thing that I really want to hit home today, is that we have to manage other species outside of deer. I know deer are a huge problem. I understand. I acknowledge it. But that being said, there are other species that are a big problem, and I'm only going to hit on the 3 today. There are others. We could get into conversations about fox. We could get in red fox, gray fox. We could talk about coyotes. We could talk about migratory birds. Because all of these different species in some capacity can be destructive when it comes to property damage and or crop damage. Blue herons, if you have a place with fish. Turtles, holy smokes, turtles can be devastating to somebody that has a pond, even if it's just a recreational pond. So for today, I'm just going to hit on those 3. But like I'm saying, there is a wide swatch and variety of other species that cause a wide variety of damages, property damages, crop damages, ravens, crows, bears, elk. You get the gist, right? Like, we have to be understanding and acknowledge the entire ecosystem and kind of what impacts what. But, we've hit on deer a lot. Today, we're kind of acknowledging the fact about groundhogs are a great opportunity to manage right now and all the implications if you do not, including safety implications. Raccoons, which I didn't even mention about raccoons and rabies, and same thing for possums. Some of them do carry rabies. So there's another safety issue when it comes to both of those species. And then obviously the crop damages themselves, and then potentially property damage if they end up killing any of your, chickens or other species that you may have on your property. So all of them are a concern. All of them are a risk. I want to switch gears real quick, talking about all of that. I want to talk about habitat improvement. We're talking about basically food plots, and we're talking about crop damages and what kind of to manage to improve. Been seeing some stuff out there again. Different legislators wanting to see habitat improvement through the Pennsylvania Game Commission. On a personal note, I'm extremely supportive of any idea or conversation to do habitat improvement, especially on the game lands. It is certainly a slam dunk proposition to invest into the ecosystem, to put money back into the game lands. The amount of money that's coming from the game lands is a big chunk of money, and the realistic approach to put money back into the game lands, in my opinion, it's an absolute no-brainer. And it's furthermore a necessity. We have food plots, we have cornfields, we have soybeans, we have orchards, we have all these different things. And basically we've created our own private sector food plots where the animals leave the woods, come out from their bedding areas, and basically consume all of these different ag products, whether that's somebody's livelihood or that's somebody's leisure food supply. It doesn't really matter. It's still your private property. But the point being, when you connect all of this, the idea of investing back into the game lands is a good thing. Not only does it, obviously help sustain the wildlife that's there, but it also has major benefits when it comes to the ecosystem as a whole. So I understand the whole ideology of managing the whole system, but when you're talking about harvesting and when you're also talking about crop damages, giving more food for those animals on the game lands to consume and eat is very critical. Uh, Also, I think there should be a lot more just habitat development as a whole. Talking about hinge cuts. I've done hinge cuts. For those that have never done a hinge cut, it's basically when you take a chainsaw and you cut a tree roughly whatever way it's leaning. If it is a leaning tree, if it's a straight up and down tree, typically you got to put a little bit of a notch in it. But basically, you don't want the tree to be severed all the way through. You want the tree to still have a connection. It's really kind of nice if you can keep about, I don't know, 20 to 30% of the tree still connected. What's the benefit with that? Well, number one, by that material dropping down, a lot of wildlife, it's just harder for the deer and whatnot to get to a lot of the vegetation. So some of that stuff will grow and it becomes lush again. 2, it becomes really good cover for wildlife. And 3, a lot of times a tree will not die. Sometimes it'll sprout off of the where it's fallen down. Sometimes it'll sprout off of the stump or the actual trunk area. And other times it'll start sprouting off all around it. So you get a lot of new growth. I just did an area last year. It was probably, if anybody goes on our YouTube channel, MOA Outdoor channel, there's some old videos actually where you can see us doing hinge cuts. Some really good info on there as well. Some other things that, when we've done habitat improvement, I try to make some videos for people to share. But hinge cuts are a huge benefit. Great turkey cover. Tremendous turkey cover, actually. Which, speaking of turkey cover, there is one thing that really bothered me, I guess, this past spring, which I find to be, I don't know, I've only read the articles about it, but there was, the Game Commission had done some controlled burns, Southwest PA, it was Cambria County. They did it May the 12th, was what I was reading, which I cannot understand. I cannot understand in good conscience why we are. Why are we burning the woods in May when that is like peak turkey poult hatch period, whether a hen is on her eggs or whether a hen is walking around with her newly hatched babies. I don't really understand that. To me, if you're going to do a controlled burn, that is something you do in like March. Like if I had to pick a month, March is absolutely probably the best month of all months that you could do a controlled burn. It's kind of like, the hunting seasons are over. The vegetation has not yet sprouted. Spring is obviously not here yet. But yeah, that was something that, there's an article out there. And it just completely caught me off guard because I was like, why in the world are we burning the woods in the middle of May? That is not a time that I would ever in a million years advise or think to even rationally presume that we would be doing controlled burns. It just doesn't make any sense. So I haven't really gotten any good data or information to back that up. They call it a iconic prescribed burn. Actually, in the one I'm referencing, it took place State Game Lands 108, located Blair and Cambria counties. It's actually where they dropped igniter-filled spheres size of ping pong balls, ignited leaves on the ground. They burned approximately 2,200 acres, and it was done by basically trained staff that watched over it. I mean, the Game Commission had listed here, and the reason that this was a question is it was kind of contested politically, and I would say it raises a lot of questions for me personally because, again, to me, March 1st to probably April 15th, if I was to give a timeline, actually probably February 15th to April 1st, if I really had to give a prime time. But I would probably say February 15th, April 15th. That would probably be my window. Once you get past April 15th, the turkeys start getting on eggs, especially into those first 2 weeks of May. Like, that's a no-brainer that they're on eggs. So yeah, I cannot understand why we would do that. It does raise a lot of questions, which, hey, that's why you have the legislature, right? It's good to raise questions and ask questions, and you know, maybe the Game Commission has an intelligent and thorough response. I don't really know. I've read the article, raised a lot of questions to me because the timeline just does not make a whole lot of sense. So when you're talking about habitat development, controlled burns are a good thing, but they have to be done strategically because otherwise, you know, if you're burning stuff in the middle of the summer, that to me is like counterproductive because you're actually killing a lot of species, burning a lot of things, obviously to death. If you can do it during the dormant stages, to me, outside of, you know, even when fawns or, because you got to think too, even in that time of the year, there's going to be a lot of fawns that are dropped, not just turkeys, other species too. So a lot of species have their babies at that time of the year. So yeah, I don't really understand May the 12th, but you know, that'll be a story that I'll look into the future, along with other habitat development needs on the game lands and just different thoughts and ideas. But hey, I hope today was helpful. Please make sure you're looking into groundhogs, raccoons, possums, and you know, explore the different habitat development needs for your property and what your, you know, goals or ambitions are, whether that's hobby farming, industrial farming, hunting, etc. But hey, special thanks to the MOA, MarianaOutdoors.com, 10 Mile Creek Outfitters and Wild Acres Farm, 10mileco.org, 724-579-0924. I'm Jason White, and this has been The Great Outdoors.